Hi there, Chris Whelan here from Chris Whelan Coaching. I want to talk to you today about the second of the really significant leadership mistakes that I see leaders making. And that is really about a lack of core values, not understanding what their core values are, not really articulating them, if you like, and certainly not certainly not living them. So what's the problem here? What's actually at stake? And as I say, one of the biggest things that I see is that leaders they ignore their core values. They kind of have a sense of them, but they don't really live them. They're not explicit. They either don't have them clearly set out, or they just operate outside of them, which of course is even worse. Here's the thing: your values define your culture. They set your leadership and they set your business, because the tone is always, as we know, the tone is always set at the top. And if you're struggling with your team, with your engagement, with your inconsistent customer experiences, or you feel like your business lacks direction, the chances are pretty good that your core values haven't been set effectively, and you're not using them as the guide, if you like. In the next few minutes, I want to show you why that makes a difference and exactly how critical those core values are to your business success. When I say business, it could be an organization. You could be working in the public sector. You could be working for a non-profit organization. These principles that we're talking about are absolutely universal across business, across government, across the non-profit sector. It could be, in your church environment or something like that. These values absolutely make a difference. So, because I think these are real game changers. So what happens if you get it right? If you actually have good core values? Let's talk about that first. Now, I'm going to give you three things that I think happen. Firstly, you'll attract and retain the right people. Why? Because people naturally pull together and they say, hang on, I like those values. I identify them. This is my people that I'm coming to. Right? So they be employees or customers or partners along the way. They align with your values, align with their values, creates a synergy for them, and off they go. So number one, you attract and retain the right people. Number two, you create, I think, an unshakable culture. And that's because your team operates with consistency, with trust, with purpose. And that has to lead to better performance and less micromanagement. And no one likes micromanagement, right? And then the third thing is that your decision-making actually becomes, I want to say, effortless. Now, of course, no decision-making is purely effortless. But here's the thing. You don't have to second guess whether it's an opportunity or a partnership or a new hire is right for you. Why? Because your values will guide you along the way, right? You're clear what they are. You're not going to hire someone who has values that are 180 degrees from yours. You're not going to partner with someone who actually, does something which is contrary to your values. As an example, if your values were environmental sustainability, would you partner with a oil and gas company? You might. I'm not saying you wouldn't. I'm not putting a judgment on that, but some people might find that problematic. So your decision making becomes easier. Conversely, there's three things that happen, and I'm going to give you another three things that happen if you don't get it right, if you don't address your core values. And they're painful. They're absolutely painful. Number one, you'll struggle to build a loyal, high-performing team. Now, you can see that's almost the opposite of what I've just said. Why? Because people don't know where they belong. They feel disconnected. They haven't got in New Zealand, we talk about sturanga waiwai, a place of standing. They don't know where they stand. And so that is a problem within high turnover occurs. And again, that could be with your staff, it could be with your partners in business, it could be with your customers. Number two, going to the customers won't trust your brand. They don't know what you stand for, right? The old saying that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. It's the same thing. If people don't trust your brand because they don't know what your brand stands for, you ain't keeping them, right? It's simple as that. They'll look elsewhere. And number three, the third thing, which again I think is very, very painful, is that most of us, almost everyone, we've all got 168 hours in the week, of course, but most of us want things to run reasonably smoothly. We want time. And if every single decision is like pushing something uphill, pushing the proverbial snowball uphill, it's very, very hard because you end up making decisions in chaos. You end up going from left to right, pillar to post, and not really having consistency. And that's why those values become so important. So if it's something you want to build a business that's strong, it's aligned, successful, you have to get absolutely crystal clear on which values matter, which ones don't. I think there's the old saying that, in the matter of principle, be like the rock in the middle of the river, stand firm. But in the matter of things that don't, sort of experience, let the water just flow around you. Now, that image for me is strong because when your core values set up who you are, you're not going to move. You're going to let other things come against you. So, and let me tell you a quick story about that. I had a client, it was a fairly small business, growing, but fairly small. Let's call the, excuse me, the business owner James. Normally I go with Joe, but in this case we go with James. And what he was finding is that he was quite frustrated. He had a great vision for his business, knew he wanted to get to. He wanted to build a business that provided top-class service, top-class looking after his people, looking after his customers. But something just wasn't right there. He was, employees just weren't engaged. He didn't come to work on a Monday morning thinking, wow, everyone wants to be here. And then what we found, and this is what really kicked off the problem, is that there was starting to be a bit of churn in these people. Once we dug in a little bit, we realized that James, although he in his head had a sense, oh yeah, but these are the values that I think are important, he hadn't actually defined them. He hadn't put them down on paper. He had a rough idea what he stood for, but nothing concrete. The problem with that, no one could really identify with what was in his head, what he assumed everyone knew. What they say about assumption. It's not a good thing, really. So we went through a whole process to define his non-negotiable core values. Things like integrity, excellence, accountability, right? That has major implications because excellence means you do your best job every single time. Accountability means that you're accountable to the person next to you, they're accountable to you, and you're all accountable to getting the job done properly for your clients. So there's a whole bunch of things that came through there. Most importantly, what we did was to build systems around his business that reinforced it. Within 6, maybe 7 or 8 months, employee engagement had changed fundamentally. Customer satisfaction had absolutely soared. And perhaps even more than that, certainly from my perspective as a business coach, James was actually much more satisfied with his own business. Right? He wasn't going to work on a Monday thinking, "Why am I here?" So that's, I think, one of the key benefits of leading, if you like, with your core values. So a couple of teaching points, a couple of things to think about. How do you fix, if you've got a problem, how do you fix it? How do you fix it in your business? And I want to give you five suggestions, 5 things that I know that will absolutely make a difference. Number one, start with, as you do with James, define your non-negotiable core values. Ask yourself, what do we stand for? What principles are we absolutely not going to compromise on? And what are the things that we proverbially prepare to die in a ditch for? That's number one. Number two, communicate your values constantly. Don't just have them up on a wall somewhere. Live them, right? Core values aren't a poster in your office. If they aren't values. They're not lived. They're not woven into your fabric of what you do. That's not good enough. So communicate them constantly. Number three, in my view, hire and fire. I'm not saying you go hire and fire people all the time, but hire and fire based on your values. I talk about the 4 C's of hiring: character, calling, chemistry, and competence. Competence absolutely has to be there. But if a person's character isn't good enough, right, that isn't going to work for me, and I'm not going to hire them. So hire and fire based on your values. And the biggest test, whether a person truly believes in their values, is to consistently operate within those core values. Number 4, line your business decisions with your values. Right? Don't go and do stuff that doesn't sit right with you. Now, I'm not saying be willy-nilly and always, be obstreperous and contrarian. That's not what I'm saying. But once you know what your values are, don't go and do stuff that doesn't align with them, because ultimately you can't walk in someone else's shoes. You can't walk in their values. You've got to walk in your shoes. So make sure that align with your business decisions, align with your values. Number 5, again, I think this is important. Recognize and reward value-driven behaviors, right? So you set up your values, you're living them out. When you in your organization and people are living them out, when you're engaging with your partners, when you're talking to customers, with your suppliers, with whoever, when you see values that align and behaviors that align with your values, reward them, right? Because that reinforces it, builds a stronger long-term outlook. So again, why does this work? Why does all of this work? Let's bring it all together. To me, when you lead with clear, well-articulated values, it creates a business that's strong, a business that's aligned, and is built for not just for today, but it's built for long-term success. Your team's going to be more engaged, more committed. Team being your extended team, right? Inside and outside your business. You're going to have trust, and people are going to stay with you for longer. And from your perspective, as a business owner, as a team leader, as a church leader, as a government leader, you are going to be far more satisfied because your things are easier and more consistent, and you're going to get them done. And you're going to be proud of what you're doing, and that's massively important. So, look, if any of this resonates with you, my email is chris@wcbe.co.nz, or you can jump on a link in the calendar link in the description below. Let's get together. Let's have a quick chat and see whether there's something about all of this that can be done in your organization, your business, because ultimately these things matter, right? If we want to create a better future for all of us, and that's what I'm about, then these things matter. So let's get together and have a chat. In the meantime, have a wonderful day and keep living those values. Cheers. Bye-bye.